Hey, welcome to Fans of the Forge. We are here for Season 6, Episode 18, The Messer Sword. I'm Chris, and to my left we have...
You guys, Sean?
No Teresa again this week. She's still at camp, and she's going to be there the rest of the summer.
So right.
It's her job. So we'll see her when she gets back, and maybe sometime in between if it lines up. But anyway, we move on into our episode. Our smiths for this episode, we had John Thunert, part-time bladesmith. It was noted, part-time bladesmith. No years given.
Oh, so he just started 2 days before?
I guess, it didn't say. And he's at Mr. Bug78 on Instagram if you want to look him up. Then we have Tanner Hetke, who is part-time with 3 years of experience, and he is at Germanic_Forge.
Okay.
Then we had Jason Palmer, who is part-time bladesmith with 5 years experience, and he is at blossoms.and.blades.forge.
Okay.
And then you had Jeff Peters, part-time, 3 years experience at Old Wolf Forge.
All right.
Those are the contestants.
Okay.
So nobody has a whole lot more experience than anyone else here. Looks like it's pretty even.
All right. Hopefully you got an easy challenge, because of the lack of experience.
Oh, you think they would give them an easy challenge?
Well, I mean,
there's nobody there that has more.
They're not
going to
make them do some crazy stuff with
Oh
Damascus.
yeah,
right?
They would never give them anything like canister Damascus or
well,
like that. Really?
I mean, one canister, all right, canister, whatever.
Well, what if I told you not only
not one,
not just one canister?
What?
They did
2.
No.
2?
No.
Oh, come on, man. They wouldn't do that to these guys.
They did it.
They did it?
They did it. They went there.
Wow.
3 canisters. 3 individual canisters. The 3 canister challenge. And you had to make 3. You had to take 3
different materials. Oh, it's all the same stuff? What?
No.
It's the different materials?
3 different materials.
Well, it's all going to be hardenable steel, right? I mean,
what?
I mean, that would make sense.
That would make this too easy. There's only 2 hardenable steels and then 1 non-hardenable mild steel. We have 10 series steel in one of them, 52-100 ball bearings in one of them, and then mild steel railroad spikes.
Oh, great.
So it's
fantastic.
Very, very interesting round 1.
And they were, what, cubes?
Little cubes. Little cubes. And they had to then get those billets out of those cubes and make a single Damascus billet using all 3 of the billets they got from those mini cubes.
That's nutso.
It was really...
That's a little wild.
That is really bonkers. For this round 1 competition, it's tough. That's a lot to do.
I bet they keep track of their billets. Just fine, no problem, right?
Just fine, no problem. You would think so. But anyway, they had to make a blade that was 12 to 15 inches with an overall length of 22 inches. So why don't we just get right down to the nitty-gritty here. For John, he planned to do each can one at a time so that he wouldn't confuse them as he goes. So that's one method.
Good
plan. He had some issues getting his canisters off, so he just goes to the grinder and grinds them right off, and that worked pretty well. He welded his billets side by side so that it was 3, he spread it out into a nice long rectangle, and then he stacked them side by side, and he was really concerned about warpage because of this, because there's all different metals on the sides, and that's how your blade's going to warp. And Ben is concerned that because the mild steel is on one side, it's going to take a C shape and just start to bend.
Right.
But also, John drops his billet a bunch of times, and he says he thinks he might be the guy to get the record for the number of times he's dropped his steel while he's working.
It was falling all over the place.
He was. It was all over the ground. But anyway, he quenched his blade, and it was hard, so it seemed good.
Good.
For Tanner, he never made canister before.
Okay. All right.
Season 6.
Well, all right. Oops. Yeah, but he's only been doing this for 3 years?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's still very early on. And that would be, I consider doing a canister, and it makes me nervous to even think about that. I'm barely working with mono steel right now. So
You'll
Who
get
knows?
there.
Yeah.
Maybe in 3 years.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, he marks his canisters with different numbers of stripes so that he can identify his.
Well, that's
so
a good plan.
That worked well for him. He had, everybody pretty much had issues getting their canisters off, so he went and he ground his off as well. And by the time he does get them off, there's 30 minutes left in the round. He hasn't made a billet or a knife shape at all yet, and he has to forge weld these things all into one billet. So literally in the last, half hour, he gets this billet put together and manages to put together a decent knife shape. And it was really surprising. So in the last 5 minutes, he decided he wanted to dip it in acid.
Yeah.
Just because he wanted to see where his mild steel ended up, and he couldn't tell if it was on the edge. And when he takes it out, he's looking at it, and he goes, "Oh, it's really warped. I didn't realize it was so badly warped." And
he can just straighten it out, no problem.
Just straighten it out, no problem. Take a piece of cold steel and just bend it on your leg.
Right.
It snaps in half.
Oh, well.
It snaps right in half.
How about, and it was what? He had time to fix it, right?
Oh, you mean the 5 seconds left in the round? Yeah. Oh my God, that was
I guess
rough.
he should have looked at the clock before he did that, or
how did you judge it? 5 seconds left, and you're like, "This thing's bent to hell. What am I supposed to do?"
Guess I'll bend it.
I guess I'll fix it.
Yeah.
So you're pushing on it as hard as you can. You're trying to win a competition.
You're not gonna win that way.
Well, you don't know what's gonna happen. But anyway, it breaks in freaking half. It was really crazy. In half. And then we move on to Jason, who also never made canister before. He immediately realizes he doesn't know what he put in any of his canisters. So that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And then while he's working on one of his canisters, and it starts shooting sparks and starts leaking everywhere. So he has to throw it away.
Right.
But he doesn't know.
He doesn't know what's in it.
What's in this freaking thing? And he goes, "Well, I think I saw a ball bearing fall out when I dropped it.
Right.
So it hadn't fully forge welded everything yet. So it must be ball bearing. So I'll do another ball bearing one." And he creates a cube. And while all this is happening, Ben is sitting there having a psychic premonition.
Yeah.
Saying he could grind the cans off of these and etch them to see what they look like. And then he'll know what the third material is that he needs.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that. No. He just goes with what he thought, which was the ball bearings. And we'll see how that plays out.
I wonder how much he actually had done with that can yet. Like, I don't know if he had gone to the press and was already compressing it.
It hadn't barely.
Because why just cut the fucker open and see what's in there? Take it to the chop saw and just hack it and cut it in half and see what's in there.
Yeah, you should. Well, that's exactly kind of what Ben was.
He's like saying like grind.
He was saying grind it, but
I just take it to the chop.
Yeah, if you knew you had to get rid of it.
Right,
you weren't
it's already busted.
Then just go right into it. Now you have to cool it down super quick and just do it. Yeah, it doesn't matter at that point. Just throw it in the water, cool it down quick, and then just chop into it. You should probably be able to, and then you could probably. Would you be able to see if you have a saw blade go through something like that? Would you still be able to see the difference in material?
I would think so, because it's powder and it's whatever is throughout, and it's only a cube. So even if you cut it,
well, we'll see.
It's small.
We'll get into
I would say that you should be able to see what was in it. That's my theory.
I agree with you. I think that makes sense. But he does manage to quench his blade. Doesn't know what steel he has in it. And then we move on to Jeff, who he did something with the tops of his cans. He ground them down so that they would go.
Oh yeah, so
they
they sunk in, and
he said it was to remove any. Prevent air gaps from happening, which it's the first time I've seen that. And the judges were like, "Why wouldn't you just weld it outside and just fill it up more with the powder or whatever?"
So, just fill it up to the top of powder and then weld it like everyone else is doing.
And then when he gets his billets made, he decides to stack them side by side so that it's 3 rectangles like this, side by side on their edges.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting idea.
Wasn't Ben saying some weird shit like that? Ben was like, I would do it like this. So he was I would put the mild steel at the tang and then harden at the blade edge. And I'm like, how the hell would you do that? You'd have to stack.
So he was saying stack them lengthwise.
You'd have to have them like as a billet squared off, whereas most of the guys I think are coming out with flat billets and then they're layering them
right
as sheets almost, if you would. But you'd have to have it as like a chunk to do what Ben is saying, and then flatten that out.
I think he had some reasoning behind it. I don't know offhand how it would exactly work. But Jeff goes the opposite way, but still kind of different than anyone would see because of the way he stacks it on the sides like that, and then welds it together, and then squeezes it down to his billet. And then he quenches, and he gets a crazy warp. Like you see that from as soon as he pulls it out, the thing's like this. Like, oh.
Yeah.
And then Ben said, he could fix it if he was to heat it back up, bend it past in the opposite direction, and then quench it again, and
it's going to come back
a certain amount, right? So if you compensate this way enough, it should go relatively straight.
Yep. I'll say something real quick.
Yeah.
I saw on one of the Facebook groups, a guy was saying that when he does some shit like this or a Sanmai, he does mild steel on the outside, hardened in the middle, and because of that, if there's a bend, he'll just bend it cold or something like that. And because the mild steel holds everything in place, so there's no risk of the blade breaking because there's no hardened steel on the outside. Somehow, the mild steel keeps everything kosher somehow. Everyone's like, how, what? But he's like, he does it all the time. He says there's something about it.
But that doesn't seem to make sense.
Doesn't seem to make sense, but he swears by it.
I know minimal about grain structure, but I feel like if there's an issue with your hardened steel and it's brittle in the middle of your knife, I suppose the mild steel might.
There was some more explanation to it.
But he must still be grinding down to the hardened steel for the edge.
I think just for the edge, but he's saying in stuff like this, you don't have to worry about heating it back up to take a bend out. You can just bend it. Or some guys, after the quench and they're heating it back up, and blah, blah, blah. You don't need to do that. Just because of the way it's layered.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to see if I can find that. But anyway, for the judging of this episode, for John, Dave likes that there was no warping, but he did have a very heavy blade. For Jeff, Ben liked the profile, but the warp is terrible. It was pretty wacky. Yeah. For Tanner, Doug commended him for his effort, even though his blade did break at the end there. And then for Jason, this was like watching a court case. Where an investigator came in, or Ben was like a detective.
My cousin Benny.
Stand. My cousin Benny. So Ben took the piece from the canister that Jason had thrown away.
Right.
And he
fished it out of the garbage can.
Well, or whatever it was. You're assuming it was
I just want to want that visual.
I could see he was like, I know that thing's down in here.
Where is it? Sifting through some banana peels and whatnot. Some old carcass parts and stuff from the old testing.
So he takes it out. Yeah. He grinds off the can, and he etches it, like he said.
Right.
And wouldn't you know it, he had the piece right there to show the railroad spikes.
Yeah.
The head of the railroad spikes were perfectly visible.
Yep.
And so because of that, Jason did not have all the required materials and did not meet the parameters for that blade. So it comes down to what's worse.
Yeah.
One guy's missing a steel. The other guy broke his in half.
Right.
So they make such a big deal about those parameters all the time.
They're hitting hard this season.
They're hitting pretty hard. And wouldn't you know it, they stuck with the parameters and said that because he was missing a steel, Jason was not meeting them and he had to leave.
Yeah.
And they thought that Tanner could potentially fix his blade.
Listen, my argument would be, well, Tanner didn't turn in a blade that met specifications for length because it's in half. It's broken in 2 pieces. But their explanation was, he did what they asked him to do aside from his blade being broken. But I mean, you could argue either way on that one.
Yeah, that's really tough. That's I see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have an opinion either way here. It's kind of like, this is what the judges chose.
Yeah. It's what they decided.
So Tanner gets a second chance.
Yeah.
And he has to come back with 2 pieces of steel and make it 1 knife now.
Yeah.
So that should be interesting. So we move on to round 2.
All right, round 2. So these guys have to make candles and have to fix their blades. They give him 3 hours to do it. So for John, he just needs to grind his blade and make it a little smaller. He thinks one of his bolts strips when he's attaching his handle, but he gets it tight enough.
Yeah, so like he went and he grabbed pliers and he was able to get the bolt down a little more.
His Corby's was all racked or something.
Yeah, it just wasn't right.
Yeah. Then he etches his blade to see where his railroad spike is in the blade, and he's happy with it where it is. For Tanner, he starts by welding his blade using a MIG. Ben had some sort of thought on how to fix by cutting off some tang and using the oxyacetylene torch to weld it.
Yeah, which was, I mean, I suppose it'd be feasible.
It's feasible. It's a lot of work, and if you've never done torch welding, you're never going to try it.
Right. I didn't know that.
Because I've done it in a class, and it was crazy, and it's not something you just know how to do. So,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Tanner goes with the MIG, welds it up. He knows it's going to be mild steel. That's what the MIG is, the filler metal is.
Right.
As he's grinding, he notices a dip in his blade at the weld, so he adds some more weld beads, and then he grabs some burl wood for his handle. For Jeff, he puts his blade in the water and heats the spine to try and straighten it, because he was trying to take that crazy warp out. And he loves the fit and finish process, and then he puts his almost complete knife back into the straightening rig. It doesn't break, but it's not perfect, but he's okay with it.
It was like the last second.
Yeah, it was right down to the wire, and the judge is like, "What? Like, just leave it alone."
Yeah.
So moving on to testing. For a strength test, it's a baton bash onto a railroad spike 3 times by Ben. For Jeff, the first strike did some damage, and there's still a significant warp. So for John, he survives the 3 strikes in one piece. You can see exactly where he hit the railroad spike on the knife edge.
Right.
For Tanner, it survived the strength test, but there's noticeable damage at the weld.
Right, which was mild steel, which
right.
we all knew.
Yeah. Next test, apple slice test by Dave Baker. So for Jeff, the blade will cut, but the warp made it deflect upward slightly.
Yep.
For John, it's got a real good edge and it cuts beautifully. And for Tanner, it's got a real basic but comfortable handle. It cut well. Then cracked a few apples at the damaged piece of his edge.
Right.
But it cut well again.
So he had a good edge, except for the one spot
where it was. Yeah, where it got beat up. So Tanner got the boot due to the edge damage during their strength test.
Which, it is what it is. But he didn't fail. It wasn't a catastrophic failure or anything.
Yeah.
So that was impressive.
Yeah.
Because we've seen other people weld their blades and they failed almost immediately.
Right.
So he must have done a pretty good job with his weld.
Isn't he like a metal guy?
I think so.
Yeah, he's a like a metal worker. He knows his shit.
Yeah. So we move to the final round. It is the unveiling of this round, and Will pulls out the curtain, and it's the Messer sword, and then Dave Baker goes, and the buy knife.
Yeah.
It's boom, right down in the table. And so it's a 2-weapon challenge.
Awesome.
So that's right off the bat. They're really kicking it up a notch. So the Messer translates to knife in German, and it's actually a 15th century sword classification. And the Messers themselves were basically they could vary from like one-handed something like this, like something one-handed, to a two-handed sword.
Yeah.
But they're all qualified as messers. And they come with a guard attached via rivet, and then there's a curve and a clip point, which were very popular for hunters at the time. Then the buy knife was the knife that kind of went along with this with the hunters as their skinning and cooking knife.
Yeah.
So they would have their buy knife as their backup extra knife to have on hand to take care of whatever they killed.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting combination of weapons. So for the messer requirements, it had to be 24 to 26 inches in length with a fuller on each side, and the handle needs a disconnected knuckle bow, rear quillion, and a small side guard. And then the buy knife had to be 7 to 8 inches in the blade, and then basically was like kind of match the aesthetic, I guess, is what you want to go for, you know, for
right,
that part.
Yeah, like a matching set.
And then they do 4 days to complete.
Okay. So John starts with his buy knife on day 1, forges it out, and then starts the messer. On day 2, we got the buy knife heat treated. Day 3 works on heat treating the sword. There's no cracks or warps. And on day 4, works on fit and finish, and he collapses at the end.
Yeah, he really just fell to the ground.
Yeah, he fell to the ground. He fell right out. Moving on to Jeff. On day 1, he has 2 irons in the fire at the same time. He gets his blades forged out and then grinds in a fuller. Day 2, ready to quench both blades. Both the knife and the sword are hard. He hand forges a guard out of railroad spike, grinds the shape of a wolf head into the guard, which is pretty...
It looked good.
It looked really good.
Yeah.
Didn't show anything on day 3. Day 4, works on fit and finish, decides to chop antler as a test. That's crazy.
Why would you go with
on day 4?
That is so nuts. If you break it, you're done.
Yeah.
But he did it.
He did it.
And it was fine.
Yeah.
We come back to the forge for testing, and the keel test was a pig carcass slice and dice. For John, his messer sword was a little forward heavy, but both the sword and the knife were very sharp and they will kill. And then for Jeff, he had a beautiful balance on his messer. It was very easy for Doug to control forward and backward motions with it. And the edge of his buy knife was razor sharp and it will kill.
Nice. What are we at?
Strength test.
All right. So for the strength test, Dave Baker's going to do a log chop. It's 3 times in, and the buy knife tip test,
where he hammers it in and then bends the tip inside the wood.
Yeah. So John, the messer edge is still sharp and straight. The handle is a little strange, but really well done.
Mm-hmm.
For Jeff, the messer is well balanced. Both pieces are beautiful, but the tip broke off.
It's a little brittle at the end there.
Yeah.
And then the sharpness test was the rope slice surprise.
Hello.
Cut the rope, and then whatever is behind the curtain, which it just turned out to be blue liquid in tubes.
Right.
Hanging there. But okay, as a surprise. Thanks, Doug. And then John, his buy knife is very sharp, but it did not cut all the way through the rope, and he had to take the sword to cut through it the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And then the messer cut through the tubes very cleanly. For Jeff, his buy knife, even though just the tip broke off,
oh boy,
the buy knife worked on the rope well, and it cut with one swing. And his balance on the messer was great. It did well. Good cuts through the tubes. And so, Jeff wins.
Wow.
It was really something. So, John's was just outperformed in the sharpness test, and the balance and weight weren't as good as Jeff's. So, Jeff wins it. Congratulations, Jeff. Good job to all the guys on this episode.
Yeah.
You know, even if we give you crap for something that happens or a mistake like that, obviously we've never done it. So
we're getting better.
We're getting better. And we're just joking. So please don't take any of this personally.
Don't hate us.
And
guys,
go follow all of these guys on Instagram, like John Thuner at MrBug78, Tanner Hetke at Germanic_Forge, Jason Palmer at Blossoms and Blades Forge, and then Jeff Peters at Old
Wolf Forge.
So congratulations, Jeff. Again, great job to all the Smiths in this episode. This was a fun one.
Yeah, it was a tough one.
It was a tough one. They've definitely been keeping the pressure on this season. After the long-running season last season, they've really came back and they've kept up the good stuff so far. So we're only, if it's as long as last season, we're about halfway through. And they've been holding up pretty consistently.
Yeah.
So it's been good. So thanks to everybody who has been following us and liking our stuff and subscribing and all that good stuff. And while we're here, we'll show off a couple things that we have on our little set.
What do we got?
We got this Randolph Blades glass that was gifted to us.
That came straight out of Blade Show.
Blade Show from Dana Dupuis. We also have my knife on the table that I bought from Belmont Blade Works.
Little Bubba.
Bubba. We have my first knife that I completed, well, relatively completed, with the paracord handle. I just wanted to have it nearby while we talked. It had a different aesthetic, a different feel.
You don't scare me with that, Chris. You just wanted it nearby when we talked?
Yeah, of course. I'm becoming one of those people that I need a knife near me at all times.
Okay,
And then, of course, we have...
Oh, yeah.
What's this? Some beef jerky that Sean made.
Made that last night.
This is going to Bronze Stout, our giveaway winner.
Okay,
so
good.
I hope he enjoys that. We also have our knife banner, which this may be the last time you see it because this is going to be sent out to Bronze Stout along with that beef jerky right here. And I also have a bottle of hot sauce around the corner that I'm going to be sending out as part of this. And that'll cover a good chunk of some of the giveaway items that we have to send out.
Nicolaitis Blade Works koozie.
Oh,
for my,
that's a great koozie you have there.
Harpoon Dunkin' Summer Coffee Pale Ale.
You're not sponsored by any of those companies.
But if they want to sponsor us.
I would say no. I like the beer.
Good stuff.
And then you can't not talk about this bad boy right here.
The old Tomahawk.
The old Tomahawk. We haven't done our video to test this thing yet, but we can do it soon. I really want to get
it chopping.
Get it chopping. I want to build a target too. Maybe try doing some axe throwing with this bad boy. See how it holds up. I've been seeing a lot of Josh Weston and Jason Reddick have been working together to teach these throwing axe forging classes where you go to this place, you forge out the throwing axe, and then you throw it and actually
pretty awesome.
do it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I keep thinking about this, and I keep seeing this, and I come downstairs and I swing it around and be like, oh yeah, I could really do some damage to something.
You don't scare me with that, Chris.
I'm not trying to scare you.
All right.
We're just a knife household now. This is how it works.
All right.
This is the
what happens.
The industry we put our feet into when we
got
started
ourselves
this podcast.
into. Yeah.
So,
all right.
That's it.
We'll wrap this up.
Yeah, we're just rambling at this point. Wild. So, thank you everybody for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff.
And be on the lookout. We might be changing things up soon.
Yeah, we might
try something new.
So
we'll keep watching, keep listening, and we'll see you next time.
So we brought